Now, while insulating your home is a smart way to save money in these times of skyrocketing gas prices, there's also a lot of wisdom in considering what people are now doing at these park and ride lots. Carpooling. Now, Governor Patterson says the recession, Wall Street's meltdown, and overspending by the state will all be contributing factors to the record-breaking deficit he says will happen in the next 4 years. Now, skating's not just a fun way to enjoy the winter, it's also a great way to burn off some of those extra calories you may have put on during this busy holiday season. Now, officials here at the Animal League say it's important they find loving homes for these dogs as soon as possible so they can make space for the animals that will be brought here from the south that were affected by the hurricane. Now, here in Syosset, in some areas where the track curves, the gaps are more than a foot wide. So the LIRR is proposing to extend this north side platform by over 600 feet to the east, which would allow some trains to platform on a straight track and eliminate the wide gaps. Now, the Pope has a full schedule planned while he's here in New York. Tomorrow morning, he'll say Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and then thousands of people are expected to line up along Fifth Avenue to get a glimpse of him as he rides in the Pope Mobile. Then Sunday, he'll say Mass at Yankee Stadium before he departs the country. At Kennedy Airport, Tom Allen, TV 10 and 55 News. This was the scene around 5:50 yesterday morning near exit 46 on the eastbound lane of the Long Island Expressway. Authorities say 27-year-old Raheem Griffin of Shirley was driving drunk and with a suspended license when he slammed his Mercedes into the back of police officer Kenneth Barabolt's patrol car, sending the officer to the hospital with significant head and pelvic injuries.
We don't know exactly how much function Ken has at this point, but we're very pleased to say that he has shown some early signs, which is all we would expect at this point, some early signs of recovery, and that is some movement in his extremities.
According to Nassau Police, the 30-year-old officer had returned to his car after pulling over another motorist on suspicion of drunk driving, 25-year-old Marcin Baikuch of Bayshore. Officials say Griffin may have been going as fast as 75 miles per hour when he plowed into the police vehicle. New York City firefighter Philip Scarfy was on his way to work when he stopped to help pull the officer from the car.
It was a combined effort of everybody who responded, who's given this man the best fighting chance possible.
Meanwhile, Nassau officials say they're outraged by what's happened, and on weekends they'll be setting up checkpoints on the LIE to crack down on what they say is an epidemic.
We need to do more enforcement and need to arrest more people who make this very bad decision to get behind the wheel of the car after they've been drinking.
Now, the county executive read a statement on behalf of the police officer's family, thanking everyone involved for all of their efforts. They also asked for privacy during this difficult time and urged everyone to pray for Kenneth's recovery. At Nassau University Medical Center, Tom Allen, TV 10 and 55 News.
It's not fair. It's not right.
Hempstead resident Wanda Hudson is not happy that she may have to pay $3.50 next year to ride the bus, a 75% increase from the $2 fare she currently pays. This rider says the increase is ridiculous.
First of all, I think things are hard, and who's looking out for the little guy?
Riders on the LIRR won't get off much easier. Rail tickets will increase between 24 and 29% as the MTA seeks to close over $1 billion deficit. Stu Gluck commutes into the city from North Belmore.
I think it's insane. I mean, I'm paying so much right now. You know, a monthly ticket is almost $400 round trip. You know, and it's going to keep going up. I mean, when does it stop?
And one-way tickets on the subway could go up another 50 cents.
Born and raised in New York City, been riding the subways and using the MTA for all of my life, and have found that it's been, with the increases, the service has decreased.
Now, equally controversial is the MTA's proposal to start charging motorists to cross East River and Harlem River bridges, which have always been free.
I don't think it's practical to do it, only because the queuing is so large, would be so large with the backup of all the vehicles. Plus the aggravation, everybody ranting and raving.
The increases won't go into effect until March, which will give state lawmakers a chance to enact recommendations made by a governor-appointed commission. Tom Allen, TV 10 and 55 News.
Today marks the 7th anniversary of the day our world was broken.
In a solemn ceremony at Ground Zero, Mayor Michael Bloomberg addressed family and friends of those lost 7 years ago in the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center. And one by one, the names of the deceased were read aloud in honor of their memory.
Jerry DeVito.
Robert P. DeWitt Jr.
Roseanne Macrina of Brooklyn lost her brother Stephen Massey of Selden.
It's always a difficult day. Always a difficult day. Probably will be. Forever, for my lifetime anyway.
Today, they came to reflect and just be together to mourn. Throughout the day's ceremony, 4 moments of silence were observed at the times the airplane struck the towers and also when they collapsed. Former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who was in office at the time of the attacks, also came to pay his respects.
For 7 years, we've come back here to be together, to feel how the entire world is linked in our circle of sorrow.
Just blocks away here at Battery Park, a memorial of flags was on display, where some came to sign a steel beam that will be part of a memorial.
It's just like it happened yesterday. It's just so sad. It's still vivid in my memories, and you know, my condolences to all the families.
Now, there are two types of flags that are flying here today in Battery Park. One is called the Flag of Honor, which lists the names of all the people who were killed in the terrorist attacks. The other is the Flag of Heroes, which is dedicated to emergency service personnel who gave their lives to help others. Ann Douglas says she'll never forget what her 27-year-old son Fred told her just weeks before he was killed in the World Trade Center's South Tower.
Mom, I lived a great life, so if I don't live to be an old man, I will have had the greatest life, and anyone would want my life.
In Manhattan, Tom Allen, TV 10 and 55 News. Jenny Wong of Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, describes what it was like waking up yesterday as a tornado packing winds up to 135 miles per hour ripped through her neighborhood around 6:30 in the morning. Wong says her home suffered chimney damage, so she had to stay at her cousin's house just a few doors down, which had minor damage.
There's this huge shed, like a garage shed, that flew into our yard. A lot of debris went into our house. There's roof tops, like the top layer of the roof.
Today, Wong was one of several residents waiting to find out when they could return to their home as building inspectors were on the scene assessing the damage. Department of Transportation workers were also on site assessing damage to the city's sidewalks. The area still looked like a war zone with debris everywhere and demolished cars scattered throughout the neighborhood. Now, meteorologists say yesterday's tornado was the first one to touch down in Brooklyn in more than 100 years, and some residents still can't believe that it happened in their own backyard.
It was like a nightmare at first. We woke up, and when we had gotten up, we just felt the whole building shaking. It was rocking back and forth, and we were all scared. We thought it was like an earthquake. And just a few blocks away from Bay Ridge, some residents in Sunset Park experienced pretty much the same devastation. Damaged homes, uprooted trees, and destroyed vehicles. This Brooklyn resident says he's putting everything into perspective.
Thanks God, really, is everybody is like good and safe. But only thing that happened, some property lose some roof or some chimney. That's less important than somebody lose their life.
In Brooklyn, Tom Allen, News 55. Bronx resident Victor Ortiz came to Coney Island with his sister Nydia to take a walk down memory lane once he heard that Astroland Amusement Park was closing its doors for good on Sunday.
I said I have to see it one more time.
Located right on the beach, the park has been a part of the community for 46 years.
You're losing a big part of New York. This is New York history here.
The owner of Astroland, Carol Elbert, issued a statement saying the park was closing because she was unable to renegotiate a lease with the owner of the land, Thor Equities. Eddie Driscoll can't believe it. He's been coming here for 35 years.
It's a sad day that it's going to close and that my daughters won't be able to continue to enjoy.
Now, one of the rides that will continue to operate is a historic roller coaster known as the Cyclone. It received landmark status 20 years ago and operates under a separate lease agreement.
As long as they leave the Cyclone up, it still keeps a part of the heart of Coney Island.
And for the Schneiers of Brooklyn, it's really heartbreaking for 7-year-old Jonah. He's waited a long time to go on the adult rides.
Pretty sad.
Yeah.
This is a landmark. You can never replace a place like this.
At Coney Island, Tom Allen, TV 10 and 55 News. Boarding a P-51 Mustang bomber at the American Air Power Museum at Republic Airport in Farmingdale, Dr. Roscoe Brown once again found himself on familiar territory. An airplane similar to the one he flew back in World War II as a Tuskegee Airman, protecting B-17 bombers over Berlin.
The Tuskegee Airmen were a group of achieving young African Americans who were determined to serve our country, win the war, both the war against the Nazis and the war against prejudice and segregation.
Today, Dr. Brown was honored at the museum by the Stop and Shop Flight of Aces program when he received a refresher course on the airplane that he used to fly. Now, during his 2.5-year tour of duty as a Tuskegee Airman, Dr. Brown flew on 68 missions, shooting down 2 fighter jets in the air and destroying 3 that were on the ground. John Tolman brought his son James to the event. He was impressed by the airmen's exceptional record of protecting U.S. bombers.
One of our favorite movies is The Memphis Belle, and not to have one of those B-17s ever go down because of these guys is something special to hear.
I'm very, very proud of my dad. He's always been my hero.
At Republic Airport, Tom Allen, TV 10 and 55 News. It was dress rehearsal time for the almost 12,000-pound ball that will drop tomorrow night in Times Square to bring in the new year. And with 1 million people expected to attend the festivities, some say there's no better place to be than New York City.
We're coming from Mexico City, and we're expecting the best party of our lives.
But some aren't so sure they want to brave the elements.
We are thinking that maybe it's going to be too crowded, too cold. This is something that we were going to discuss about and decide.
Preparations were underway throughout Times Square as the crossroads of the world prepares to take center stage. Hundreds of New York's finest who graduated from the Academy yesterday will also be on hand to make sure things flow smoothly. Meanwhile, inside one Times Square, organizers were busy putting together some of the fun accessories. Now, the dropping of the ball here in Times Square goes back to 1907. It was made of iron and wood, weighed 700 pounds, and was decorated with just 100 lights. Since that time, 7 different versions of the ball have brought in the new year.
Boy, have we come a long way. That's all I can tell you. This year's ball has many, many new changes that are going to excite the world. Number one, the ball is twice the size as previous years, 12 feet in diameter this year, and it contains over 32,000 Philips Luxeon LEDs, more than 3 times as many as previous years.
In Manhattan, Tom Allen, TV 10 and 55 News. Nassau police say one of their own was a victim of a hit and run today. According to authorities, the officer was struck while conducting a traffic stop between exits 39 and 40 in the westbound lanes of the LIE in Old Westbury. The officer suffered non-life-threatening injuries and was later released from North Shore University Hospital with a fractured wrist. Authorities say that while the suspect is in custody, he has not yet been arrested and is being questioned as the investigation continues. Well, Suffolk police have arrested 5 Deer Park men for attempting to rob a man while he was walking down a street in Bayshore. An elderly man was the victim of an attempted robbery this weekend at a local shopping center. But the suspect was surprised when the 74-year-old decided to fight back. On a day when the U.S. military reported the deaths of 9 more U.S. soldiers in Iraq, some top officials gave Congress a report on the war, including an outlook on troop withdrawal. When News 55 returns, the FDA looks for simpler ways to make healthier shopping easy.
Alan's in for CJ Papa tonight. He's here with all the day's sports. You got a close race in men's golf.
Plus my team, the Yankees, versus Richard's team, the Mets. So Tom, tell us who won Game 1.
Well, I've got bad news for one of you guys.
Oh.
The Mets travel across town to the Bronx to take on the Bombers in the 2nd Subway Series this year. Yankees took 2 out of the 3 in their last meeting. They put Mike Mussina on the mound against Pedro Martinez. We take you to the Bronx. Bottom of the 1st, Pedro Martinez, second pitch to Derek Jeter. It's a bad one, crushes it deep to center. That's a solo shot. 1-0 Yanks. Now top of the 5th, 4-2 Mets. Carlos Beltran sends a bomb to right field. It's gone. He sure does hit well when Pedro pitches.